Good morning, Roxy Soxy.
And good afternoon, Tam.
We're know the time difference. We're in two different places. I'm in Australia and you're in Los Angeles, I think. Tell me what's going on. What's happening?
Oh my God, Tammin.
What's happening?
Tammin.
Tell me what's happening. Tell me all the things.
So,
all the things that Miss Auntie Tammin can't fix for
you.
Yes.
You were gonna. So we did it in Miami. Hooray!
You had sex?
Yeah, but now I think that's gonna bite me in the ass because my husband has coronavirus.
Imagine you got coronavirus because you had sex.
I know.
Wait, you had sex? I'm so proud of you. Yeah. How was it?
We did it. It was good.
How was it?
It was great because it was what do you call it? Hotel room. You know, the hotel room sex.
I'm so proud because it's been a minute. So he must have lasted 2 seconds.
It was a magical 60 seconds.
It was a magical 60 seconds. But you enjoyed it?
Yes, I totally
And now you like, why the fuck did it take so long to do this? Why did I wait so long when it's so good? That's why I tell people who are like, oh, I haven't had sex for a while. I'm like, it's good, right?
Yeah, it's
when you do it, like it feels good.
Yes. Oh my God. So we did it and we were all like lovey-dovey cute at the airport. Like we were like having these little moments where we were like pressing against each other in the tram.
Yes, after sex, that's what you do.
So great. It was so great. And then we got home, we finally got back like late Monday night. And then on Thursday, my husband was like, my throat feels a little itchy. And I was like, oh really? God. I'm like, oh, you're probably like run down or whatever from traveling.
And you still being nice to him because you had sex?
Yes. And I was still we were having a great week. And then Friday rolls around and he's like, no, my throat is getting worse. And I'm like, uh-oh. He's like, I feel really tired too. And he just slept like 2 hours in the middle of the day, which he like never does.
Which is rare. Yeah.
That's weird. And he's like, you know what? Just to be safe, I think I'm going to have a coronavirus test tomorrow morning, which was yesterday morning. So I was like, okay. So he took a nap in the morning before he went to go get the test after he had woken up. And he went to go get the test, came back home. We get the call last night at like 7 p.m. Oh, yep. You are positive for coronavirus. So now, he's double vaccinated, thank gosh.
So they say if you get COVID being vaccinated, it should be mild.
Mild.
That's like they said 100%, and this is just what I read, 100% of the positive COVID cases in the hospital are unvaccinated. 100%.
Yes, 100%.
So there's no, and I know it can happen, but it's not that likely for him to go to the hospital.
Thank goodness.
He's vaccinated.
Thank goodness. Yeah, he and I are both double vaccinated since March. The only thing I worry about is my daughter because she's not vaccinated. She's too young to get vaccinated.
But then they do have a lesser of a chance of so yeah.
That's what I'm hoping. Like so far, she and I feel fine. So I'm hoping it just kind of stays on that trajectory.
When's the last time you saw him?
So he has been quarantining in the room. Like he'll kind of peek out. Like I have to go and deliver food, on a tray, like by the door. And like he has to
wear a mask. You wearing a mask when you go there?
Okay, gloves. Good. Like he's in a mask and gloves. Like he's quarantining in the guest room. So like we switch out. Like I have like the Lysol spray and like, it's the whole, I kind of felt like I was channeling you a little bit like earlier this year. I was like, damn, I'm like, should I put up the plastic
2 weeks
coating?
You can't leave that room though.
Yeah, that's the thing. He can't leave the room. So he had work travel planned this week. He has a huge work event tomorrow night with Megan Fox, like that he now can't go to. He was supposed to travel to Texas for work this week. All of that is canceled.
So you think probably because everything's like back on track and he's been traveling so much, he's just been exposed to more chance, right?
That's what I think. But we were in Florida this past week, and I know right now they're saying on the news that that's sort of a hotbed for this Delta variant. So who knows where? The incubation period sounds about right that it would have been in Florida, but like, I don't know. It could have been anywhere there though, Or
you know what? You're just going to have to let me know if you need anything and if you test positive, but I think you guys are okay.
Oh my God, Tammin, I need all your good, like healing juju.
I do not think it'll get anywhere close to what Sean had. I just don't think so.
Okay,
no, being double vaxxed, I just don't. I really don't.
Yeah.
I have high look, I know you can get COVID being vaccinated, but I have high hopes that it's definitely not as intense.
Okay, good, because that makes me
I
feel
think you're
better.
gonna be okay.
Because then I was like, great, I'm having sex. Here I go.
The one time I have sex, I get COVID.
Damn it.
Well, someone who doesn't have COVID and is here with me doing a movie is one of my favorite people. Her name is Madeline West. She's an author. She's an activist. She's a writer. She's an incredible actor who I was actually on a show called Home and Away, and she was on a show called Neighbours at the same time, but we never really crossed paths, but we kind of, came up together in Australia. And she is one of the most intelligent, kind, soulful, interesting human beings on the planet. I adore her so much. And hello, Madeline West!
Yay, Madeleine!
I don't need to take any vitamins ever again. I've just had the biggest serotonin hit from all of those compliments, all that gratitude.
I feel like I could have given so much more, but we got to get into this podcast.
I feel like my head out the door of the hotel to go to work. So no more.
I love it because I feel like you guys had because one was on Home and Away and the other was on Neighbours. It's like the Dallas and the Dynasty, showdown.
Yes.
Are you trying to say we need to have a Crystal Alexa style showdown?
Yes.
I'm into that. Do you think we could get that scene written in, Tammin? Do you think there's a chance?
I do. It was so surreal when I saw that you were on this movie, because it's weird. You and I have been in this business for 20 to 25 years. I'm like, oh, I'm so old. My mom sent me an old picture of me when I was 17, on Home and Away. And I was like, how did it go so fast? But we knew of each other. And I feel like we were literally living sort of similar lives at the time, but we never really
passed each other at the Logies on multiple occasions. The Logies is Australia's version of the Emmys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
With a lot more reality TV stars and a lot more lip gloss. But apart from that, they're practically the same. I'm sure we're like ships passing in the night. We've passed so many times and probably done photo shoots together, etc., etc. And didn't you date one of the Hemsworths at one stage?
See,
oh my goodness. We are not going to talk about this. We are not going to talk. Oh my goodness.
How she tries to distract with the musical interlude. I'm just saying that, I've worked with a couple of Hemsworths. My kids all go to the same school as them now. We're all on the same street. So it's like kismet. It was destined to happen.
It was meant to be. And they were always, because I was looking, I don't know, I stumbled on one of their Instagrams recently and I was like, they were just, I don't know them very well, obviously now, but back then, because Chris Hemsworth was on Home and Away, when I left, he kind of joined. And he was just always the nicest person, very grounded, down to earth. What you see is what you get, no bullshit. And I'm assuming and hoping that he's still the same thing. And I feel like he probably is, because Australia will not let you if you have an ego, they will rip you apart.
Yeah,
I love that they keep you guys in check. It's like you cannot get too big for your britches. But
it's such an Australian thing. It's like what? You get onto everyone's very lovely on an Australian set, but having worked on both US and Australian sets now, in the US it is very much so. What can we do for you? We want we understand you're doing really long hours. We want to make this as easy as possible. But in Australia, it's like, what? You want some food? Just sit over there. Cup of tea over there. Go on, just make sure you're back in 5 minutes. So, they talk about keeping it real. It's very much like that. And I definitely think the Hemsworths are a product of that. And they have, terrific family values. They're a very close-knit family. Their parents are very strict about, integrity and working hard. And I think that's translated to all of the kids.
They're also a very hot knit family. How do you guys do it?
Roxy's like, how did they get so hot?
I know. It's like these Australian men are just all these strapping, gorgeous, very
it's all the surfing.
Is that what it is?
It's all the surfing, it's the sun, it's the sand. We definitely have a strong, very iconic social identity about masculinity, about working hard and getting out on the land. But let's not delude ourselves. We've got just as many saucy metrosexuals in our cities floating around. And we've embraced the gender fluidity vibe big time. So we've still got our outback jacks, but we've got we've got all the bits and pieces. But that's very much part of our blue collar identity, that kind of hard working, hard yakka man. And let's hope we hold on to that.
Yeah.
You know, we were chatting on set, and one of the biggest stories that was around, you know, a few years back was, and I want to get into this as soon as we can, because I know that what actually happened to you also translated into a lot of how you felt as a woman and as your identity when it came to being an actress and, you know, changing kind of who you were as a person. Was that you told me this story, which I think a lot of Australians know, when you were walking down Oxford Street and you actually got hit by a bus, and you got hit by a bus in the face. And I want you to recap, if you can, if it's not too traumatic, that experience and what it taught you and what the narrative was surrounding that experience, and how it shaped your life.
Absolutely. And I'm going to preface it by saying, you know, I've always wanted to be the kind of girl who stops traffic, just preferably next time not with my face. In the face by a bus. I was in Oxford Street, Sydney. It was during my neighbours days, your home and away days. I'd flown up to Sydney straight after a full day of shooting and to host a kids helpline charity. And I arrived at 9 o'clock at night. The hotel restaurant was closed. They said, go across the road. There's a lot of convenience stores. So I did that, went across the road. And all I remember is standing next to a bus stop. I was on the pavement looking for the traffic lights, which I knew corresponded with the entry of my hotel, because I'd never been to Oxford Street before. I looked left, I looked right, and that's the last thing I remember. The bus had been speeding. It was 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, in a busy, you know, urban setting, and had mounted the pavement coming into the bus stop and collected me. So it hit me right there and threw me a couple of feet, and I landed on the ground, skidded on the ground, lost all the skin down one side of my face. And in terms of diagnostics, I had 3 skull fractures. So my skull was fractured there, and under the brain shelf, all caved in. I had a crush injury, which means that the skin dies on impact. They have to basically cut it all off. And I had a skin graft, which came from my butt, which my kids love because that makes me a butt head. That joke one more time.
They're right.
Exactly. I burst all the blood vessels in my ears. I broke half of all my teeth. I had a significant acquired brain injury because I'd had 2 cerebral hematomas. The brain inside its socket from impact ricocheted in the skull. And the interior of our skull is a series of needles, and that punctured my brain at several points. So there's a lot of bleeding on my brain. I had air bubbles in my brain cerebellum because the fracture under my brain shelf didn't heal, and it ruptured the cerebral sac, so that brain fluid was running down my throat, which is very attractive. But often we've discussed this in life. We go through a series of near misses, you know. Something happens, realistically, the statistics are of someone bodily hit by a speeding bus, 95.9% of people end up dead. And of those who don't, they have lifelong physical or psychological, mental injuries. And I've come out with a stutter and some broken teeth and a dodgy eyebrow. But perhaps most significantly, I've been acting since I was 5, and I was a stage actor who moved into television. And I often say I think that bus accident was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because at the time of the accident, I was 21 and I looked at my face. So the accident happened, I went into hospital. Someone saw my wallet while I was lying in the gutter. So I came into the hospital as a Jane Doe. No one knew who I was. My agent thankfully got a call from the kids helpline saying Madeline didn't show up for rehearsals. Is she okay? He called Neighbours. They said, we put her on the plane, don't know what's happened. He then called all the police stations, all the hospitals, and they said, yeah, we have a Jane Doe matching that description. She's been hit by a bus. So he scrambled in, and they were about to do surgery on me. And he said, no, she's an actor. You need to do it precariously. So I could have just had horrible scarring. As it was, he found a plastic surgeon who restitched my face and used skin grafting. So I just got permanent Botox on one side of my face to be tight, as opposed to being as flexible as it should be. But when a week after the accident, I saw my face for the first time, and I'd gone into the toilet unassisted for the first time and looked up at the wash basin into the mirror, and I did not recognize myself. My face was twice its normal size, black, blue, lost all the skin down here, 2 eyes, all the capillaries broken. And in that moment, if I'm brutally honest, I wanted to die. As we've discussed, my upbringing hasn't been the easiest. I left home before I was 16 and ended up on the streets, put myself through high school, got into university, found my way back to acting, which was my passion. And I was ready to throw all of that away because my packaging no longer looked perfect. I was ready to go back to my room and have, my greatest wish was that a nurse could just come in and give me sleeping pills and I could just end it right then and there. So I had to ask myself a really important question, and that was, why was I an actor in the first place? Was it so that I could tell people stories, let them walk in my shoes vicariously for just a moment and live another life that they might not have access to otherwise, and to entertain them with those stories? Or was it so I could look sexy on the cover of a magazine? The answer was clearly the former. But it was a pivotal question because I'd been indoctrinated into an industry which values you on your looks, first and foremost, especially when you're a young actress coming into a world where it's all about the smokes and mirrors of appearance. And that accident forced me to address the fact that all I had to offer and all the talent and everything I'd worked for, I equated and diminished and diluted in accordance with how the world saw me, how they perceived my appearance. I equated my value and all I had to offer with the way I looked. And that was a critical realization for me at 21 years old. And it completely changed the trajectory of my career, because I realized if I was prepared to sacrifice all of that because I had a couple of broken teeth and a dodgy eyebrow and a bruised face, I didn't deserve to have all of that in the first place. And I believed I deserved it. I'd worked so hard to get to where I was. And if I truly wanted to be a storyteller, I just had to mix up the way I did it. Maybe I could be a director, a story writer. Maybe I could work behind the camera. Maybe I could go into writing. Maybe I could just play the Phantom of the Opera and have a mask on my face. If I thought that I was a character actor, then go full play Quasimodo, Invest in that. Go beyond the necessity of the perfect facade and delve into the depths of quantity that is beneath that. I realized that the way we look makes up that much of who we are. And if we're prepared to shove all we have to offer, all of our ambitions, all of our dreams into that much, then my God, what legacy are we leaving for our children and their children's children if we populate the world with people who define themselves by that much of who they are? If that is all we are, then where are the great thinkers? Where are the scientists? I just, as much as it's easy to be inculcated into that notion of being concerned about the way we look and how we present, I'm going to call BS on it, because we have a generation of young people who are the harbingers of change, that they're our future leaders. And they're spending all of their time pimping and primping and preparing themselves for a world that ostensibly, but just by doing that, they're allowing that world to judge them on the shape of their nose and the shape of their ass and their tits and their waist and judging their IQ in inverse proportion to their cup size. That's bullshit. Right. Where is the next Theodore Roosevelt? Where is the next Isaac Newton? Where is the next Albert Einstein? If they're all too worried getting the lighting right and making sure their makeup's perfect. Bullshit. Where there is so much.
Isn't it society, though, that's doing that? Like, isn't it what we see mirrored back to us? Like, I absolutely agree with you 100%. When you're 16, 15, 17, and your brain is a fertile environment to accept all these images and all this noise and all this narrative of like, you must look a certain way, and then that equates to you being enough, we are ripe for that to become our ideology as women. And how do we change that? Is it really start within, and then you really have to ask your kids, are they strong enough to be able to do that as a 16-year-old? Or does it really start with this society and what we put on covers of magazines and what we put on the billboards and who we put on TV? Like you were saying, I still am yet you see a sprinkling of it, but I'm still yet to see a normal-bodied woman in a sex scene with her cellulite, with her butt out, with her boobs that are a little saggy because she fed. I am still yet to see that. And until I see that, I will feel abnormal. I will hate that my stomach is like a little saggy. I'll hate that my boobs aren't like under my chin. Until we see that consistently, not just like, oh, it's like we're making it, we're really, this show is about body positivity, and we've made the entire narrative of the show a body positive show, and it just becomes the norm. Mm-hmm. That is the only time that we will start to believe that we are enough and we are okay. So anyway, that's just my guess.
But you're 100% right, and we do mirror society, but the same is true in reflection. That society mirrors us. That if we're still buying those magazines, if we're still subscribing to those shows that show those images, if we as parents are passing on to our children our own insecurities, and if we continue to say to our kids, you can be anything, reach for the stars, while we go off to a job that we hate, and we present ourselves in a manner that takes more effort than should ever be required, then nothing will change. And it changes in small ways by people being able to satire their own struggles to look perfect. And if we can maybe follow the European model of filmmaking, where we do see women of age who look like they are their age having sexual relations with men whom they genuinely enjoy, and those sexual relations looking real, not like porn. That is where the dialogue starts. It starts at the grassroots. It starts in our homes. It starts with us setting a blueprint for our children for what it means to live a fulfilling life, a life rich with wellness and fulfilling our own dreams. The moment we as mothers and fathers throw our own lives and ambitions down the toilet to become mama and papa as opposed to Madeleine and Tammin and Roxy, that is where the rot sets in. If we tell our children, you know what, I'm Madeleine, who is your mum, and that is the most exemplary thing, the greatest gift and the most fulfilling role I could ever ask for, but I'm also Madeleine the actor who needs to go off occasionally and do jobs, and you might not see me for a couple of days, and I'm Madeleine the author who needs time to go into her study and concentrate while she's writing, and I am Madeleine the partner who has someone in her life who fulfills her. I need to give oxygen to all those Madeleines to be the best Madeleine I can be. And to be, if I'm the best Madeleine I can be, then I'm the best mum I can be. And if they understand that from the beginning, that your mum, you are mum and I am the son and you orbit around me and everything in the world orbits around me, we're setting them on a trajectory towards a fulfilling life, which means you don't always get what you want, but you have to fight for what you want. The world is not here to satisfy your needs. Yes. You have to give back to the world. And that comes back to, you know what, your value in the world is not quantified purely on this, that there is so much more than that. And so that's where it starts. It starts at the grassroots. It starts in the home. And I think a part of that is demonstrating to our children that the path is not easy and sometimes sacrifices are involved that hurt, and that involves trauma at times. Fact is, our kids are going to experience trauma. We can't helicopter them and we can't wrap them in
we can only show them how to get through trauma, which I think is so important.
Show them how to live.
They're going to go through pain. They're going to go through pain. They're going to go through trauma. But for me, I felt so guilty as a mom when I would go off and have to go to like a work event and do a red carpet, and I'd be leaving my daughter, and she would say, Mommy, you have to go to work. And I would turn around and I would say to her, no, I want to go to work. This is something that I'm very passionate about. And I want you to also find something you're passionate about in life that makes you happy and that you enjoy, because for so long I couldn't reconcile the two. I was like, God, I feel guilty. I don't want to leave her, but then, I feel like I want to do my job. So it's kind of like that struggle of, the back and forth. But I do think so much of it starts at home, and like how we kind of teach them, even if the world around us isn't caught up with what we're saying. I think like creating that nest at home is so important, and just being, giving them that reassurance and everything.
And embracing necessary pain, which is a critical part of life. But you know what? We can't hide them from the fact that mummy and daddy are divorcing. We can't hide them from the fact that I'm having a bit of a crisis of conscience about my work life. We can't hide them from the fact that I really love what I do. And if that means sometimes peeling away from the other thing that I really love, which is being your mum, I'm going to come back. But what you're saying, I'm providing a blueprint for an empowered woman who's making choices not just for the well-being of her children and her immediate family and her community, but for herself. That when I lift myself, I lift my family, I lift my society, I lift the world at large. And maybe one of those elements of necessary pain is feeling a bit self-conscious because I don't look like the norm, because I haven't done everything that society asks me to do to be accepted as a 40-year-old woman. I don't have the flawless skin and the perfect brow, all those things that I'd like to have, and maybe I will have. There's no shame in it. But let's accept that that is something I'm doing for me to make me feel good than saying this is the norm and this is what you must be in order to have value.
My daughter last night, though, she was in the shower and she said, and it just broke me. And I thought, God, I need to go back to therapy. I was in the shower with her, with my two girls, and she's like, when's daddy? So daddy was going to get me a veggie burger from across the road. And she said, when's daddy going to get back? And I said, he's just going to go get a veggie burger from across the road. He'll be back in 5 minutes. And I said, why? And she goes, well, I miss him. And I said, well, that's okay to miss him, but I'm here. I'll keep you safe. And she said, yeah, but daddy's with me more. And you're not around as much. Oh my goodness. And I went, because my reactive brain went straight to like aggression, because I felt fear and pain and, sadness. I was kind of like, well, I'm not here all the time because I'm, where you live is because I'm working my butt off. And then I calmed myself down and I just said, look, I understand how you're feeling right now. I'm doing what I love to do. It doesn't mean that I love you any less. And I will be with you in 2 weeks' time, every single day, every moment of the day. And I will give you everything that I can give you. But I'm not going to lie, it didn't feel good. And I don't know if it's ever going to feel good when your daughter says like, well, you're not around as much as my other parents. And I know it's not a competition. But it's like, again, we have this narrative that mothers should be the ones that our children are calling for when they're sick or in the middle of the night. So then when they start calling for their fathers, it's like, well, when did I fail? Like, when did I, when did I screw up this? When did I drop the ball? Like, what could I do better? And I remember on Thursday night, I just kept saying to him, I promise I'll be a better wife and mother. I promise you I'll be a better wife and mother. And I don't know why my insecurity crept in at that moment, but I felt like I hadn't put the time into my family because I was doing something that, is 12 to 14 hours a day and feeding that part of my soul. And it goes back to like, I don't think you can have it all at the same time. Can you have it all? Sure. Can you have it all at the same time? I don't think so. Especially not for women, because I feel like my husband, when he works, has no guilt.
Yeah.
No.
And I think that is a biological imperative, because they're part of our bodies. They're part of our bodies, and we live in a society that is told us that they need to be close and attached for as long as possible. That is not a biological or physiological truth. From the time they're about 5, they still need the care, but it doesn't just have to be the mother. And the problem is that we don't live in the village that our ancestors lived in. We might have had 30 contacts in our entire life, but they were close and they were family, and everyone had a specific role, and everyone was necessary in raising a child. As mothers, we're asked to take on all those 30 roles ourselves. And at the same time, our society, our village, the people that we will make contact with, meaningful contact with in a lifetime, is up in the thousands. And every one of them become a mirror for who we are as a woman, and what we compare ourselves to them and what they achieve. But we don't have the support of a village underneath us. So we can't do it all because we don't have that societal support system that we once had. We feel like we're so connected in this age of the cyber highway, where we can reach out to anyone at any time of day and they will come back to us. But we're more disconnected than we've ever been, because the friendships that we have, that we play out in the cyberspace ether, are they're not real. There's a real person on the other end of it. But if you called them at any one time and said, this is happening, they're not going to rock up on your doorstep with a cup of tea and a box of chocolates. That's not the reality of it, but that's what we need. So I think on a critical level, we need to recreate villages. And I've decided I'm going to start book clubs. I'm going to start.
Oh, I love that.
Gatherings of people. And I've decided that my wish list is going to be people who I want to know better. And it has to be in the physical. And I've decided I'm going to set them up in every little outpost I have in my life. I'll have one in Melbourne. I'll have one in Byron. I'm going to have one with you, Tammy. And when I set up my page tonight, you're coming too, Roxy.
All right.
That sense of,
I just I have to have time to read a book.
well, you don't
That's my
even
biggest
have to read
problem.
the book. It's a reason to gather. It's a reason to gather. We've lost the ability to gather. We gather on these. And that gathering doesn't have the power that it used to have, because the whole reason we gathered was so we could share our stories in truth, in person, and support each other. So we can have it all if we have a system of people we can delegate to. And we as women have become very bad at doing that, because we buy into the social dialogue that says, you need to do it all, you need to do it all the time. We're now doing the jobs of 30 people at once. And we still have all the guilt that when our little people say to us, but you're not here as much. Well, it's like, you know what? If we went back to our historical antecedents, the bathing would be done by the grandmother, and the feeding would be done by the aunt, and the bedtime story would be done by my sister-in-law. And I would do the birthing and the feeding, and that would be it. And the loving. And the loving. And it doesn't matter how far away we are, the power of our love is never diminished. It's never diluted. It's just the social dialogue that tells us that it is. That if you're not there holding their hand and wiping their nose and cutting their lunch, that you somehow love them less. And I say, well, I love them more, because I'm providing a blueprint. I'm giving them a role model for what it means to be a powerful person who is striving to be their best. And if that means that certain aspects of my life don't get as much oxygen as they need sometimes, that's okay, because when I come back to that, I come back to it with focus, without resentment, and I come to it with fulfillment and contentment. And I feel, for me, in the long term, that is what my children need more than anything, and that's what they'll remember. They don't need a mother who's a doormat. They need a mother who's a leader. That's what I'm striving to see myself as.
That's the hardest part, though. The hardest part, I think, is also letting go of that guilt and not feeling like, okay, if I'm not here right now, then, you know, I'm being a bad mother, or I'm not giving 100% to work. So how do we reconcile that and not feel guilty and not kick ourselves?
Acceptance, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you know what? But I feel like too, a lot of times it's other moms that make us feel
right. So not putting
know?
other people down or making
Right.
comments or
Absolutely.
no, but I do believe that women who do that, mothers that do that, is because there's like this discord within themselves, and it's like, I always say to you, remember, I always say, like, I've said this a million times on the show, unhappiness is the fastest pipeline to hate. People who are unhappy with or guilty within themselves for the choices that they've made, maybe they're in an unhappy marriage, maybe they're having, postpartum depression, they start to judge other people based on how little they feel about themselves. And I do it when I'm at my low points. That's when I judge. That's when I start to pick people apart. That's when I look at people on social media and go, oh, look at that person. She thinks she's got this, she's got that, but she's really this. I have to check myself and realize my triggers, that like when I'm feeling shitty about who I am, where I'm at in my life, I will start to put other people down. And that's why when I hear, people in the circles like gossip, gossip is just a way to make you try to feel better about your own existence and your own life.
It gives you a bit of a hit. It gives you a little bit of
it's like you get that dopamine hit, right? But then ultimately it never lasts.
No, of course not. It just demonstrates back to you how discordant your own life is. And I'm absolutely convinced that every person walking this world at this moment in some way feels insecure, feels like they're not doing it right. And that just comes from the burden of being, of living complicated lives where There are so many options. There are so many opportunities. We're constantly feeling like I'm not fulfilling my potential. I'm not doing enough. I'm not being enough. Rather than the focus coming from within, just going, but I'm here and I'm doing me and I'm doing it the best that I can. We're all waiting to be found out that we're frauds. Then we're all somehow faking it. And the good things we have in our life, we haven't really deserved or earned. Every single person, high or low, is feeling crushed by the simple act of being. And again, I'm going to come back to the way our lives, historically, the world that we were birthed into was so much simpler. If you only had 30 people in your immediate circumference and then all the people you're going to meet in your life, that's a very small pool to compare yourself to. We've got the entire planet to compare ourselves to. Every photoshopped image, every woman who's, running for the White House and has also got 8 kids that she's bringing up, and half of them are orphans, and saving the world. We've got such a comparative study. And I guess, we need to learn how to tune in to ourselves.
But it's so hard with social media, right? It's so hard with social media constantly barraging us with these images, and you can't help but feel insecure or like what you're doing.
It's so hard. And it's so hard to say, well, I'm just going to turn it off, because then you're not up to date. With the rhythms of the world. So it takes a brave person to go, actually, I'm just going to step out for a while. And I reckon, if we can each make ourselves a promise once a week, one day a week, to just switch off. Maybe that's the key. That's where we begin. To totally switch off, and whether that means getting all woo-woo and meditating in the morning, or having a glass of Chardonnay before breakfast,
or Tantra sex, which we have to talk about because you practice Tantra. There's so many things I need to talk about, and you're leaving in 5 minutes, and I don't know how to do it. We're gonna have you back. People don't even know this. You are a mother of 6 kids, twins. You practice Tantra. There's so many things we need to talk about, but before you go, because I know we only have you for a couple minutes, can we please explain to our audience about Tantra and how you got into Tantra and how it's completely changed your sex life, please?
Well, you know what? Let's not. To begin with, the modus operandi of Tantra is not about sex. It's about connection. So there's different schools of Tantra, going from the white, which is all just about connecting with other people in your world and connecting with yourself, all the way through to the red, which is the sexy time.
By the way, Madeleine's had sex her boyfriends went up this weekend, and I'm like, she's like, I've had sex so many times this week. I mean, this last 2 days. Everything's going to fall off. And I was like, way to make someone feel worse. She's had sex like 20 times. I don't know, 62 times.
When your partner is a master of Tantra, it can go on for hours. Who has time for that?
Who has time to work out?
I don't have time for that. I'm doing a movie. I've got kids.
I gotta do life. But it has taught me more than anything to connect with myself as a sexual being. I talked about this earlier, the European modality of filmmaking, where you actually see people in the ugliness of pleasure. Where the face and the noises aren't necessarily appealing, but they're sexy because someone is enjoying themselves. The sensuality of self-pleasure is a really powerful and heinously overlooked component of what it is to be human. That, we take pleasure from another person's pleasure. No other animals in the animal kingdom, save from, I think, bonobo monkeys and dolphins. They're the only ones who do it. It's part of our higher being, elemental, intrinsic, instinctive part of being human. Yeah. So we need to learn to invest in that, not worry so much about how do I look in this moment, how do I sound in this moment. And my God, that means mitigating and very carefully navigating the world of porn culture. And that's available to everyone and anyone from a very young age. And it's terrifying that sex education this day and age for young women and young men comes from porn, that sets up a dialogue for young boys that this is what a girl should look like to be considered sexy. And a girl thinks, well, that's how I need to look and that's how I need to act to be sexy. But the doctrines of Tantra are all, there is nothing in it about that, the physical. in terms of appearance. That is so far down the realms of appealing, of what is considered appealing. It's not funny. And anyone who delves into Tantra understands it's all about the simple rules of consent and asking for what you want. And if you can begin that communication, that dialogue at the beginning of any sexual interaction, you're looking at sexual satisfaction. A lot
of people don't know what they want, and I think maybe that's the first start to figure out, like, you know, self-pleasure is still, I mean, it's getting more talked about, but it's still kind of taboo to even say, especially for women, female pleasure. And so a lot of people don't know. I have tons of DMs saying, you know, I don't know what I want or what feels good. And that is the first step to being able to tell someone else what you enjoy.
And being able to identify that has its genesis in the most simple of acts, which is eye contact. Giving across from someone, don't even touch them. Just look at them.
I'm doing it now.
We're doing it. Compliment, you know, the sparkle in their eyes, compliment their smile, compliment the way they hold their face, compliment the way.
I'm waiting, Tammin. I'm waiting.
Yeah, I'm showing that to you. The gorgeous smile, the joy that radiates out of your body, and then ask, is it okay if I touch your cheek? Is it okay if I touch your neck? The art of intimacy comes down to asking for being specific. Could you run your finger along the outline of my
I'm totally getting turned on right now. You know why? Because consent is like what you're saying, consent. I guess we don't ever ask. I mean, I guess we feel like we're consenting to everything during sex, but you're being touched in a way you're like, oh, I don't even know if that's what I want right in this moment.
Tell you. Your body tells you, your body never lies. Words lie, but words skip around the truth. They put icing on a cake. The cake is in the body. The body will tell you. If something makes you freeze up and recoil, it's wrong. If something makes you open and juicy, it's right.
You know what? That is one of the first things that turned me on about my husband, because the very first time he ever even kissed me, he asked me if he could kiss me first. He was like, would it be, he's like, I think he said,
it is so cute and sexy.
Like, okay, how about a little more?
It opens a gateway, and the kiss is so important.
Right.
It is so powerful, that touching of lips, all of those nerve endings in that one sensual place, and our lips are so connected to our reproductive organs, shall we say, our pleasure organs. The stimulus is immediate, and if someone's a bad kisser, straight out the door.
But how do you get your partner on board, though? I know your partner was into this and got you on board, which obviously you're so open to to most things. I can tell that is pleasurable and good for your soul. But a lot of people, like if women want to start trying this, how do you get a guy on board when they're just again? I'm using that word narrative again of sex is just like pleasure, do the things that you're meant to do step by step, and then, you know, finish. So like, how do you get them on board to actually hold that sexual feeling for a while? Because a lot of men don't want to do that.
Well, I guess from a woman speaking to a man, you can speak to what appealed to them most, and that's it's going to make it so much better. It's going to turn me on. It's going to help us both last longer.
Interesting.
And that look, you know, from my experience, that speaks to the masculine id of I want to be the master of my domain. I want to be the lion. You know, I want to be the lover, and I want to feel that I'm satisfying my woman. That's an important part of I guess you could call it territorial pissing, you know. Use that a horrible phrase, but like, you know, I'm a more significant partner in the relationship, and it will dilute my insecurities if I know without question that I'm pleasuring my partner.
You know, that is a great point. That is a great point, because I know, I'm sure, Madeleine, you're probably the same, but Tammin and I talk about this, about being alpha, you know, in our lives, like as far as work goes and parenting, and really being that, you know, out there strong woman that when it comes to the bedroom, it's refreshing and nice to not be that person.
Yeah.
So that's a great tool to let go of that,
absolutely.
right?
And a key component of tantric is understanding the roles of the feminine and the masculine. And there is shadow and light in the feminine and the masculine. And look, a complete man and a complete woman is able to integrate both their feminine and their masculine and keep it out of the shadows. And this is a huge conversation which we don't have time for now. But the masculine in the shadow is totalitarian and rigid and not fluid and won't listen to people. But the light side of the masculine is you're a leader. You get things done. You make necessary sacrifices, and you guide people into things that they, like, you know, the army sergeant who guides their troop into battle, knowing that the outcome might not be great, but on the other end, it's for the greater good. That is the true notion of a masculine, and a woman and a man can both play that role. But women are consistently castigated for being the alpha, for being the masculine. Going into the world of Tantra helps you better understand both roles and to find the light in both roles and let you play the role that you need to play. So speaking to a man, it helps a woman better harness her feminine. It helps a man better harness his masculine and let those two aspects flower and bear fruit, so to speak. So in that way, that's one way to introduce your partner to delving into that world, because it certainly lets you be a woman.
Madeline, I'm really sad we have to let you go, but please come back, because there's so many more things to talk about.
I know, we haven't even scratched the surface yet. We need to get in there more.
We need to get in there.
Yeah,
we need to get in there, mate. Well, Madeline and I will see each other in 20 minutes on set.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate you, and we can't wait to have you back.
Yes. And Madeline, where can everybody find you?
I'm back. I'm in. I'm on Instagram at Mads West, and my own podcast is about to start up with Mamma Mia, which is a fabulous Australian network all about women. So check us out there.
Very nice.
That's all I got.
Yeah, and guys, don't forget to rate, subscribe, and comment. And we are Women on Top Official on Instagram,
and Women on Top Podcast on Facebook, and we have a group on
it's been a while.
Oh my God!
Clubhouse.
How am I forgetting Clubhouse?
On Clubhouse. I love you guys. Thank you so much for everything and being here throughout our whole journey. I am Tammin Sursock,
and I am Roxy Manning.
Thank you.
Are
Bye.
Women. Bye. Women on
Top.